Hello, everybody. Troublemaker here, and this is War Game Talk, my semi-casual blog slash podcast on things happening in the war game community. Before we go into my main topic, Clash of the Clans 2 is continuing along. About 5 to 6 matches left, not too bad. ESL, we're in week 3. We have $1,200 being rewarded so far, and we've had in the European bracket 6 different teams in the finals every week. And in the North American one, it looks like it's almost falling apart. I might talk about the North American bracket next time, but that'll be for another time. And also, we have balance patches coming out pretty soon, as well as new DLC. So lots of exciting stuff there. And of course, for all your Red Dragon related news, screenshots, make sure to subscribe to the Wargame Facebook page or Twitter account. They both give the screenshot of the day, and always hang out at the forums. There's lots of cool people there. And so, my topic for the day, the actual topic I want to talk about is cheeses. And of course, the game in the background is StarCraft 2. This is from my How to Cheese series. StarCraft 2 is kind of a joke series I did. And the topic is Helo rushes. Now, of course, this is a long-standing issue. It goes back to European escalation. And the question always is, should it be allowed? Should we balance a game in which this is available? And I have the more controversial side of this because overwhelmingly the community hates these things. In fact, the people who do them say that they don't want to, but they're just so good they have to. Should they be allowed? Should we do them? That's the question. I say yes. I think absolutely. So it's going to be a more controversial opinion because honestly, it's not something you like having done to you. It's not something particularly that you enjoy doing yourself. But there's a good reason why we should allow it. First and foremost, let's look at things that have been called cheeses in the game. One was the stalemate cheese, in which a person grabs a position, holds on to it, doesn't advance, doesn't do any, position play. A bad player will not be able to deal with a person who is entrenched in the middle with helos dropping off infantry, which is seen as a legitimate tactic. That's often seen as cheesy. Second, napalm bombing. It started off with FR Newo. It has become standard play. Basically, you drop a napalm bomb on a road. They either have to go through it, take damage, or they can move around it and lose time. Either way, it's a lose-lose. And maybe it's like 3 or 4 months ago I suggested everybody should do this. Everyone should do this tactic. It's really, really good. It's a little cheesy, but it's very, very good. And it's basically become standard play since. Everyone's doing it. And people who don't do it have a higher rate of losing, which is rather unfortunate. Helo rushes are particularly unpopular because it is regarded that they do not require a lot of skill to use. They require more skill, however, to defend. I would argue that the problem is that the people pulling them off are very highly skilled, and the people who are defending them are less skilled. And that's not to say that they're bad players completely. It's just that when a really, really, really good player has a group of units, they're going to win against a medium to average player regardless. Perfect example would be with what was his name? Our old-fashioned War Game Cup champion. I gotta look up his name. He was doing a lot of really micro-based play, and when you looked at it, it really looked like he was cheesing it. That's FIFA 55, of course. FIFA 55. It really looked very cheesy, but everything he's doing is very tactical and strategic. And you get a very similar effect with the helos, because it's not like they're just rallying out one command armor and nothing but helos. They're rallying out a command armor, groups of helos with infantry in them, lots of air superiority fighters, some bombers. They're also putting in a handful of tanks and 8 AA. It's not as all-rounded as people like, but it's still overwhelmingly more all-rounded than a lot of these tank all-ins. The thing for balance I think is necessary is it defensible? Can a person who doesn't expect it happening possibly defend it? Can they set up their deck in a certain way in which they can beat it? without going, say, all Cult of Autocannon or all anti-air. And I think it's possible. I think people have been caught off guard by this move, and they've been able to defeat it with a pretty standard deck. And I think that's the kind of the sign that it might not be fun to have it done to you, it might not be fun to do it, but that it's balanced. And I believe it was Clash of the Clans 2, possibly. No unit did this really cool move with Raining Men where they took 10 helicopters mid-game, brought them in, had the Raining Men come in, kill a command armor, and just continue like it's a standard play. I think that eventually this maneuver will shift to being this massive cheese once people can beat it. Once people are getting really comfortable beating it, once they're able to do that, it will stop being a cheese and it'll just start being part of standard play. People use this maneuver standardly and it'll work out really well and people enjoy it and they'll think it's very skillful. It's very similar to how all infantry rushes in Wargame European Escalation were very cheesy, but then later on, like if you did a mid-game infantry rush, they're seen as like very skillful. The big problem is that it's a front-loaded attack. It has a very, very high success rate, and if that success rate was reduced, that is, people were more used to it, people were practicing against it, people were able to defend it better, then it would stop being standard. The big reason why the Raining Men tactic works so well is because in the current meta, people are greedy. Yes, people are very greedy. In Wargame European Escalation, the standard kind of play was go very, very heavy on AA. Like you'd have 2 or 3 Tunguskas minimum, because that's how many you would need to defeat a all helicopter rush. Whereas in Wargame Air Land Battle, people are generally pretty AA light. I mean, in that game, I saw maybe 2 or 3. This is the finals of this week's ESL, by the way, which you can watch on this channel. Maybe 2 or 3 anti-air vehicles and a lot of autocannons, and that's fine, but there wasn't really a lot of micro being done in that battle. And of course, it's become a little more controversial as of late because Steel Balalaiklas were kicked out of the Clash of Clans 2. The reason why they were kicked out, of course, was because they were being very disrespectful to the developers who they were playing against, the Eugen Dream Team. And they also decided to pull off this all-in. And they did it. It was very easy, very successful. And they thought this was an opportunity to protest this all-in, saying, like, look how easy it was to pull off. We beat you with it. You know, you guys are noobs, I believe was the exact wording. And you guys are doing nothing about it. And they just took that opportunity. And, you know, it's absolutely possible that they might have to possibly reduce the number of certain types of cheap helicopters that you can bring in the game. That's absolutely something they can do. But they need to be able to balance it off with not having stopped this attack. This attack should still be able to continue, because one of the problems I have right now is the community is kind of split in how they enjoy playing. There's one part of the community that believes that it should be a rock, paper, scissors battle. That it should be like, oh, you know, I had more tanks and you had more AT, and so you beat me because you had more AT and I didn't prepare for that. And, like, that's, you know, that's kind of boring to me, but a lot of people are excited at that. If a style is new and it's effective, everyone is going to immediately always scream cheese. It will take months before this becomes standard play, and I wouldn't be surprised that if in future ESLs and future tournament matches, people just do helicopter all-ins. And they're not even really all-in, and that's one of the big markers of this particular build. It's not a true all-in, because even if it fails, it transforms into a normal game. And that's actually the sign of a really good, strong build. You want a build that if it succeeds, you're ahead, and if it fails, you're not too far behind. You can still catch up. That should be what every single person's aiming for. Now, am I saying that everyone should do Helo all-in versus Helo all-in, and that it'll transform into like some kind of weird metagame on who has more AA helicopters and who has more Jeeps around the map. I'm not saying that. But I'm thinking that's probably what it will come to eventually. If people start adapting to the metagame, if people start doing it all effectively. Because the thing is, if you can't stop something from happening, that means it's strong enough that you should do it yourself. And if you can do it yourself and it ends up being fine, well, that's great. Imagine a game in which two people helo rush each other optimally. Think about it in your head. I want to helo rush you, and you're helo rushing me. Now, how are you going to minimize the effects of my helo rush while your helo rush still growing strong? You're going to try and mix in some AA helicopters, of course. You might mix in a few autocannon weapons around your base. You might consider bringing in some really cheap tanks, or maybe you might want to bring in some mortars, or you know, there's different ways of going about it. There's good ways of shifting out of this, but right now nobody's thinking like that. Nobody's going, well, I know he's a helo rusher, so I'm going to helo rush him back, and that's what the professional StarCraft 2 players started doing. I know he's going to 6-pool Zerg rush me, so I'm going to 6-pool Zerg rush him. And then you have these micro battles in which it all comes about skill. And if people start thinking like that, as opposed to like, I'm going to use ineffective tactics, then it would be less of a big deal. But unfortunately, I think the people who are balancing the game want the game to play the way they play the game, which it doesn't work out in a competitive sense. You want people to try variety. And not just a variety of units, but a variety of tactics. And I think the Raining Man, although might seem a bit cheap, might not be intended in the game design, I think it should stick around. It's neat. It's cool. It's, you know, the modern form of the infantry rush. It's a very expensive tactic to pull off. It is skill oriented. You have to split up your helicopters so they don't get all bombarded by AA. If anything, they should just reduce the number of helicopters that you can take, period. But they shouldn't get rid of it. I think the idea that you have men popping out of your helicopters able to do stuff is great. I mean, if people move their commands effectively and have reinforcements in an area, they can trap the Raining Man. It's beatable. No unit has proven that. I just think that there's a little bit of an overreaction, mostly because people like their comfort zone. They like their playstyle. And I imagine in 2-3 months it'll be gone. It won't be an issue. Similar to how napalm was considered to be such a massive issue. Like, oh, this is bullshit. Burning my troops alive. And now everyone does a standard play. So that's my take on the issue. Yeah. Next time I'll probably talk about the dreaded fate of the North American ladder. Thank you guys again. My name is Trailmaker. I'll see you guys next time for Wargame Talk. As always, recommend that you post your comments in the comment section, like this video regardless, and if you want to hear more, subscribe to the channel. See you guys next week.